Oh yes, it's that time of year again. Not Halloween, it's nowhere near Halloween, but I mean it's the time of year where I need to share an unpopular opinion and go against the nearly perfect reception that this movie has got on Rotten Tomatoes, like nearly 100% on critics and audiences, and just piss everybody off. This is gonna be a good day. Greetings and salutations, my beautiful people, and welcome back to Caddies from Fridays, where we talk about films and films happen. And today we're talking about Halloween. It's not Halloween, shut up. The reason I'm talking about Halloween today is because, like I said, I've got a very unpopular opinion about it by the looks of things from how well this film has stood the test of time, as it were. And the only reason we're talking about it is because recently Chloe, who's Caddicarus' eldest daughter, we're trying to introduce her to a lot of classic movies, and we're like dipping into horrors and stuff. We've done quite a lot. And one night we decided to do Halloween because it's a classic, right? And the first time I watched Halloween, I remember watching it for the first time a few years ago, and I thought it was pretty good a few years ago. Then we rewatched it. I don't think so anymore. And that doesn't feel good to say. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. I love his movies, but for this film, I just don't think it's held up the test of time that well at all. I don't know, going back to this, I can appreciate definitely the groundbreaking aspects of it and the revolutionary aspects for horror slash slasher films, as it were. I can respect that and I can see it all in the technicalities, but that's all I can really see, the technicalities. Other than that, I do not think that this film has aged well, like, whatsoever, and I was not expecting to think about that on my, like, second viewing, as it were, because like I said, I've only watched it once a couple of years ago and I watched it again, and I don't know, guys. I'm sorry, I don't get it. Anyway, the story of Halloween involves Michael Myers, who is a child murderer, as in he's a child that murders, who basically grows up to be a man murderer. And that's pretty much all there is to it, really. He goes to an insane asylum, but the insane asylum aren't that great at looking after their patients, and he ends up getting out, and he goes back to his hometown thirsty for blood. And you know what? That's it. That's really it. I can't go into any more depth. There is obviously side plots going on with characters and stuff. There's lots of babysitting going on, and they get roped into it because they're on the street that his old house is on, and he's looking for innocent victims and stuff. And that's really it, though. There's nothing really goes anywhere with any of the other characters. It's basically just about how the characters deal with this lunatic that goes around killing people. It's extraordinarily simple, and some would say effective, but I say not that interesting at all. But I will admit that it is iconic, especially when you use that story against Donald Pleasence's performance. It's an iconic take on that kind of story, I suppose. It's very standout just because of the dynamic between how Donald Pleasence is dealing with his patient, as it were, and what the patient is actually doing. It's iconic in that sense. Oh, and it's also cool as well that you see from the beginning him killing people as a child, and that's a very, I think that does show like a very effective way of making you lack empathy for this character at all. Like, all of his actions are justified, not just because he's a man that wants to kill or it's out for revenge. You can, like, the film makes it clear by showing you, and not telling you, but by showing you, this guy is unstable, and he's been unstable since he was born, and that is a really nice way to tackle it, honestly. And don't get me wrong, it has loads of great things about it, absolutely, and for it being one of the first to tackle all of these new ideas for slasher movies especially, it's got some really impressive held up sequences and stuff, in the technicalities at least. Again, for one of the first to try it out, it's impressive how well they have held up. Like, the camera work, for instance. The camera work and the cinematography is pretty damn great. It's got many atmospheric and really creepy shots, like all of the shots where you see Michael in the distance obscured by something and then all of a sudden goes away in the blink of an eye. And there's loads of cool shots of like Michael's car in the distance, like just in the background, not ever alerted to, but always there somewhere, hiding away. And there's one of my favourite shots near the beginning of the film where you have a car coming into the asylum grounds, sorry, and the car headlights come on and they light up as they come close to the asylum. They reflect and bounce off the bodies that are all just standing there in the pitch blackness of the gardens of the asylum in the middle of the night. That, very well done. I love that shit. And with the intro especially, like I said, it's cool that you get to see Michael doing this awful, unforgivable stuff as he's a kid. But what's great is that it also averts your expectation. When the film begins, it's all shot in first person, and your mind is jumping to all the conclusions of who's doing what and what's going on. But then, once the camera pans back and you realise you are in the mind and the eyes of a child, it's cool. It's really cool. It's probably the best bit of the film as far as I'm concerned. It's like, wow, what? It really actually fucks with you. It makes you think, because as soon as you see the kid in the shot, you think, okay, how could a kid do that? Why did the kid do that? All of this time you were watching a kid stalking around and staring at everybody, putting a mask on, holding a knife. Everything kind of clicks with you, and the shot pans back and gives you enough time to kind of sink into what you've just been through, and that's really cool. I also found it quite cool how no matter how many times they keep killing Michael, he keeps coming back. He keeps getting knocked down and keeps coming back up. You never know really when everybody's safe. That's pretty cool. Gives you a nice unsettling feeling, I suppose. But the rest of the issues I have with the film are illustrated all within the intro. It's all thrown at you in the intro. The first death in particular is one of the worst horror deaths I think I've ever seen in a film. No exaggeration, it's fucking horrendous. And I would say it's funny it's so bad, but no, it's actually cringeworthy it's so bad. The thing is, independently made or not, if you can't convince your audience to be scared, or even convince your audience that someone is being killed, then the fake blood and everything, it looks even twice as fake if you can't act. If you can't theatrically convey death and being stabbed by something, you're fucked up. You're fucked up. And the first death of the film, a knife going into a young girl, she's shit. She acts like a radiator. She acts like a household appliance. The screaming is pathetic. The conviction isn't right. The sound design isn't right. And then when you're kind of watching it and you're thinking, wow, this was an 18. You're kind of watching it thinking, why the hell is this an 18? 18 restricted movie, which, by the way, I don't know why the whole film is an 18, gotta be honest with you. But either way, you're sitting there thinking, what is even going on? It doesn't even feel like someone's being stabbed to death. And then the fake blood comes up. The fake blood does look cheap and shit. But the thing is, if you can make cheap blood look cheap and shit, but then convince your audience that someone got stabbed, it's just kind of a funny little, they didn't have the budget to do it. But when you haven't got the budget for the blood and you haven't got the budget for the fucking acting to be decent, you've got nothing. You've got nothing. You've got nothing to convince me or give me the illusion that something is happening on screen. And it is so bad. I fucking hate it. Terrible. I could go on all day about how bad that first death is, but you know, whatever. You can forgive it as being one of the first to do it for the slasher movie genre, whatever. I still think it's shit. And there's even continuity errors, like you'll see one shot of Jamie Lee Curtis. Yes, one of her first, I think it was her first breakthrough movie role actually, Jamie Lee Curtis. She'll be walking through her neighborhood, and then all of a sudden it'll be as dry as a bone, and then in the next immediate shot it'll be soaking wet, out of nowhere. It'll still be sunny, but it'll look like it's just been rained on. And it's like, again, budgetary issues aside, why couldn't you just go back to that location when it was dry? I don't get it. And the script itself, I gotta be honest, the script isn't awful. I've heard a lot worse than that, especially for a 70s independent movie, but still, there's a few bits which just serve to suck you out of any immersion that you're going through. Like, there's a constant point coming up about a boogeyman, right? And I'm sure you can see Michael Myers is the boogeyman for the kids and everything. And it's understandable for the boogeyman talk with kids because it's kids, but then when the adults start talking about it towards the end of the film, it could have been like a light-hearted part of an ending part of the film. It's not. It's not. Because they say it very seriously. They've been running for their fucking lives through the whole film, and all of a sudden, now's the time to make a boogeyman joke. And not even a joke, but a serious, oh my god, was that the boogeyman? Like, dead serious, I'm not even joking. It's not even played off for laughs. Oh my god. And I also found there's one plot point which just drove me a little bit nuts. It was Donald Pleasant's character deciding to go back to Michael Myers' house, but just wait in the garden for fucking hours. Literally hours. He gets there when it's bright and he doesn't leave until it's past midnight. He just sits there for fucking hours. I know he's getting into the mind of the killer and everything, but it's bloody stupid. It's stupid. He could be doing a lot more than what he's doing. I don't care what the plot contrived reason is. Oh, he'll go back home. He knows what his mind's like. No, because every time you cut back to him sitting on his ass in the grass, it's just fucking funny. Because he's not doing anything else. And yeah, Carpenter has good direction. It's sleek direction here. Lots of really close calls and really tense moments. One of my favourites being, well, there's two favourites of mine actually. Jamie Lee Curtis in the wardrobe and Jamie Lee Curtis trying to get out the kitchen door. I think it's the kitchen door. Really well done stuff, very close calls and nice camera work dotted in and around the place. So that's definitely there, but the thing I think that really ruins it, all of it, is the acting. As far as I'm concerned, Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, and the multiple actors, I believe there are multiple actors standing in for Michael Myers, like stunt doubles, and when the mask comes off and everything. There's different actors, as far as I'm aware anyway. They all do a good job of getting their characters across, but everything else around them, oh fuck off. They are dreadful. Dreadful. Every line is said way too slowly, it's all over-pronunciated, it's not normal. It doesn't come across as normal, and it not only doesn't come across as normal, but it makes it boring as well, because it's not even like you're watching real teenagers interact or anything. It's just not, none of it works. And again, much like some of the other elements I was talking about that like ruin the suspense, that's something that does ruin the suspense. You'll be getting into it and then all of a sudden you see someone who is acting like they've never acted before. No, doesn't work. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. And no, even seeing the cool little Easter eggs of the Thing from Another World on TV and stuff, which would later be remade by Carpenter himself and all that stuff. No, it's cute, but it doesn't save it. But the real interesting thing is that on the night that we decided to watch this with Chloe, we actually watched this back-to-back with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's another very low-budget independent film from the 70s, but the thing is, it was before Halloween. And when I first watched that a few years ago, around the same time as when I first watched Halloween, I thought that was kind of like, what the fuck? I just like, what is this? This is just, what? I wasn't impressed, basically. I wasn't impressed. And I thought, going back into it, I thought I was in for some, like, just shit. So basically what's happened is a complete switch around. I thought Halloween was going to be the one that held up, and Texas Chainsaw was going to be the one that has shown its age like nothing else. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna lie, I thought Texas Chainsaw was fucking awesome on a revisit. I am not even gonna hold that back. I know that's probably not a very popular opinion. I think that movie is visceral and brutal and in your face, insane, completely uncomfortable to watch, and great. For the time it was made and the budget it was made, it does so much more with itself. The camera work is way more creative. The editing is far more unpleasant, and there's so many close-ups of horrible things. The sound design is just grating and awful. There's so many more scenes of complete terror because of the way the sound design works. Like, there's barely music in it or anything, but all you're left with is like a house in the middle of absolutely nowhere, crazy-ass family that are cannibals probably, but it is just, it's a completely different film, I get that, but when you're looking for something that is just looking to be a horror movie or look out to get a reaction out of you, Halloween did fuck all for me, but Texas Chainsaw I found unbelievably enjoyable for what it was trying to do. For giving you just an all-out assault and trying to be just a different kind of horror movie, I think it did a really good job. And there are shots in there, especially when the sun's going down, which are beautiful, really beautiful shots. Just wow. Wow, and obviously the environment's a little bit more interesting, so you could get some better shots in there anyway. And yeah, I guess you could say that the acting isn't great either, because it isn't. I found it easier to get behind the plights of the characters because of the way they were acted. I found it more realistic than Halloween did it. I just thought, I guess I thought it was better acting. Even though it's not great, I thought it was better than Halloween. And I just found it funny how I thought that Texas Chainsaw would be the one that I just thought dated beyond belief, which it is dated, but I thought that would be the one that I was just gonna laugh off and be like, oh yeah, Chloe, here's a horror classic that everyone used to be fucking scared by, can you believe it? And then Halloween was supposed to be the one that I thought, hey look, it's classy horror. But no, you know what? Fuck it. Halloween I don't think has held up well at all, but Texas Chainsaw still got an impact out of me when I thought it wasn't going to. It was unpredictable. I know, weird comparison there, but when you're watching these two films back to back, you can see what I mean, especially for the fact that Texas Chainsaw came out before. So anyway, on the recommendation scale, I'm gonna give Halloween a think about it. I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan. If you want to see a classic, iconic start to a horror movie, or see some of Carpenter's earliest work, yeah, go for it. It won't harm you necessarily, but I just don't understand what the massive deal is. I could probably understand at the time because it was one of, like I said, it was a revolutionary thing for the slasher movie genre, blah blah blah, but nowadays, no. And the fake blood and everything, that's not even a case of it. You don't need gore to be scary, that is not my point. I mean, Texas Chainsaw isn't even that gory, all things considered. It's just really uncomfortable to watch. It's just what you have with your budget and what you do with it, and I don't think Halloween does enough with what it has to be a very standout, memorable, or held up well horror movie, honestly. I thought it just kind of fell flat on its face, honestly. It just didn't do anything for me. I'm really sorry. So yeah, I've gone on about it enough. So yeah, think about it, alright? And before I upset anybody else, farewell everybody. Until next time, take care. Don't kill me, please. Don't Michael Myers me.